Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Today I'm interviewing Fabian Faupel and Adam Parker, and Fabian is the member of the month, the member, I don't even know what we call it, but he was selected as the star member of the month in the top 10. So very cool about that. And as I started reading more about him, I learned that he had a partner, which is Adam. So I invited Adam to join us because together they are super talented. So if everybody please join me in welcoming Fabian Faupel and Adam Parker.
Thank you.
Carly loves you. Yeah, it's kind of weird doing an interview without taxi music, but I'll get over it. Anyway, thanks for doing this, guys. I'm excited to interview you because I've listened to all 64 of the tracks on your member artist page. And I was chuckling to myself as I listened because coming from an engineering and production background, I could hear the older stuff and literally watched or hear the progression as you got better as writers, better as engineers, better as producers, better as mixers. And wow, you've gotten really, really good. So I want to go back to the beginning and find out, Fabian, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Hamburg in Germany originally, and then lived a bit everywhere. And then I came to Paris like 10 years ago, I guess. Yeah.
And Adam, how about you?
Well, I grew up in Watford, but I've spent stints in Spain and the USA, but Watford born and bred.
And how did the two of you meet, and how long have you been working together?
Well, I was actually I was writing songs before we actually met. And I was looking for someone to sing one of my tracks for like a boy band type of song. And then I stumbled across Adam through a website for musicians in the UK. And we wrote one song together and a second one. And then we were like, hey, let's just keep on writing together. And then the whole thing kind of came along naturally. And ever since we worked together.
And do you guys do everything together, or do you have separate projects on your own as well?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of the same rock stuff together. I mean, I'm sure Fabian's got his own projects as well, but mainly the same rock stuff we do together. And yeah, it's been great. It's been, is it 5 years, Fabian, now, or is it?
Yeah, for 4 years. 4 years.
4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I noticed by looking at your profile that you've been a taxi member on and off, but more on than off for probably around 9 or 10 years now.
Right.
And so thank you for that. Thank you for being part of the taxi family. Speaking of families, Fabian, did you grow up in a musical family?
Kind of. I mean, my father has always listened to all sorts of music and spammed us from a little childhood on with all kinds of music. My mother is actually a music teacher. She's more like into classical music. My dad is more on pop music. So that came from both sides and was like quite inspirational. But none of them is actually musicians. So I'm the first one in the family to go that way.
Well, they must be proud and very impressed.
Well, I hope so.
How
about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same as Fabian, really. They're not really musicians. My mum and my dad, they're more into the economic side of things. But my mum was very into the Carpenters.
Really?
Aaron Carpenter. And my dad was very much into the Smiths and the Cure. So
wow. Talk about two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, pretty much, man. And yeah, I mean, the Beach Boys as well, the Beatles, obviously, but mainly the Carpenters and the Smiths. They were brought up.
Carpenters are actually quite amazing, to be honest.
They are, I think the Carpenters are highly underrated.
Absolutely.
They became like a little bit of a joke, but they shouldn't be because they were super, super talented.
Well, they weren't around for very long, were they? I mean,
no.
It was only a few years, I think.
Yeah, I would say about 5 years.
Yeah.
I could be off on that number, but you're right. And just, I mean, the melodies and her voice and the song construction, just about everything about it. But yet they were treated like they weren't, because they weren't rock stars, they were pop stars. So they were a little bit dismissed because some really cool rock bands were coming up at the time and the psychedelic era was happening. Right. So, who are these people singing about love?
I mean, Karen Carpenter, she definitely could have been in a psychedelic band. She was an amazing drummer, amazing as well.
You're right. That's another area that they were very underrated in.
Underrated, definitely.
Fabian, how old were you when you first started playing music, and what was your first instrument?
Wow, my first instrument, that must have been the piano, and I don't know, I was probably 6 years old, and then at one point I got bored and started to play drums because I thought that was more cool. And and then I got back to piano because you can't really write songs with drums, but it was definitely helpful for creating beats and stuff. Yeah, so that was that.
Yeah, it's ironic that you just said you can't really write songs on drums, and now the beat is often the first thing that happens in the song.
It's true. I'm talking about harmonies, melodies, and all of that stuff. Obviously, you can come up with a beat before, and that was definitely helpful, like the drumming part of things. Yeah.
And how about you, Adam?
My first instrument was probably the recorder.
Really? In grade school?
Yeah, probably about 6th grade. And then I went on to the bass, and then I thought, I need to learn guitar. So probably like a year after I got onto the bass, I started learning guitar. And then probably more recently, piano, more than ever, to be honest. But I'd say my main instrument, probably guitar, more than anything, yeah.
And Adam, what did you listen to? What were your favorite acts, your favorite artists growing up, and what are your favorite artists now?
Wow. I mean, I was probably brought up on Queen. I like Coldplay. That the first album, was it Parachutes, Fabian? You have to remind me. Was it Parachutes, Coldplay?
Oh my God.
I used to listen to that every day. Trouble and Yellow by Coldplay. That was like my anthem when I was young.
Yeah.
And Don't Stop Me Now by Queen. Love that song. Nowadays, a bit of everything. I'm into a bit of Post Malone. I'm into a bit of obviously EDM. That's where our bread and butter is.
Yeah.
Avicii, Cheat Codes. But I do like a bit of John Mayer. I'm a bit of a guitar guy, a bit of, I love my Fender Stratocaster. So yeah, I'm very into John Mayer at the moment as well.
I've got to say, John Mayer's not underrated as a guitar player, but being that I'm from, your parents' generation, maybe, and then some, I went to see John Mayer in concert probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Is that the trio or?
No, it was the full band, and he had I can't remember, the guy from the Average White Band playing, not Seamus. Anyway, the guitar player from the Average White Band, who was a monster guitar player as well, and the two of them jamming. I mean, I've worked on sessions with Eric Clapton, and I was sitting there with my mouth hanging open, going, "This guy could absolutely, hold his own with Eric Clapton. He's an amazing guitar player and great in concert." How about you, Fabian? What did you listen to growing up, and what are your favorite acts now?
Growing up, obviously the classics like the Beatles, Supertramp, Rolling Stones, Elton John, Queen, obviously. And then when I started discovering music myself, that must have been, and I really liked the Cars. I think they were like beautiful and talented. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
Late 90s. I really liked what they did. And obviously and then I was like highly impressed by all these new pop acts like Britney Spears and back in the days, NSYNC and I think that whole Swedish written pop music that was kind of that was giving to me the idea of getting into songwriting, because I thought the songs were so fantastically written and beautifully manufactured. So But I come from a rather classic background of, really classic, good Brits, American pop music.
And do you guys consider yourselves, if somebody said, how do you label yourselves? Do you label yourselves as pop artists, pop songwriters, pop producers, pop all of that?
Well, I would say first and foremost, songwriters and producers. we have a little artist thing going on, but that is more just a showcase thing to, you know, get our name a bit out there and show people what we do. But I think our strength is really in the songwriting, top line writing, and music production. Yeah.
And Saint Rock is the artist, the brand that you go under together, or no?
Yeah, no, that's also the songwriting team name. We just figured out it would be cool to have a name.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there a division of labor, Adam, that have each of you found what your strengths and weaknesses are within your partnership, and do you guys naturally gravitate to, like, if you come up with if there's a problem and you know that Fabian would better solve it than you, do you lean on him and vice versa, or do you guys equally share the load?
Of course. I mean, Fabian's all about the details. Very much about the details. Very good pianist, and obviously I've grown up on guitar, so a lot of our stuff is mainly piano based, synth based sort of thing. If there's ever anything on guitar that he needs, I can always play it for him and send it over to him. The same vice versa, drums, because Fabian's was brought up on drums as well. But yeah, I mean, Fabian's great with the production. I mean, I'd say lyrics and production, that's his bread and butter. I'm probably more the melody side of things in guitar. But yeah, it sort of blends in well, very well, to be honest. Yeah.
And what's your writing process? Because, I mean, obviously now for the last 9 months, you guys are rarely, if ever, in the same place, and you're probably doing a lot of Zoom writing and whatever. So tell me about the process when you were able to be together. Did you guys travel back and forth to each other, sit in the same room and work like that?
Well, funnily enough, the whole COVID situation didn't really change a lot, because Adam is most of his time in London and I'm actually in Paris. I mean, we get to see each other quite a lot because it's not very far away. But yeah, we work a lot from distance actually, and that works actually quite well. Because if we're in the same room, we often end up drinking beer a lot. So it's actually, no, it's actually cool. Yeah, yeah, how do we go on about songs? I mean, most of the times we start off by making the backing track, write the top line afterwards. Sometimes we just write the top line for some backing track we've been sent to. But yeah, it starts off mostly with the structure, and then obviously we have to find a lyric concept, a cool, interesting story, a title that sticks out, and make the lyrics sound a bit unconventional and edgy and interesting. Trying to bring something new to the table, basically.
So I'm guessing that maybe more often than not now, you guys are writing an answer to either a taxi listing or a brief or an artist. Maybe you've been approached by a label or an artist to work on a particular project. So Adam, is it kind of standard that one of you will reach out to the other one and say, okay, we've got to do this kind of piece today? And do you play ideas that you have for Fabian, and then he responds by playing ideas he has for you, back and forth? Is that the process?
Yeah, I mean, usually there's like a brief, and we'll basically work off that, to be honest. I mean, with Fabian, he will send me a lot of piano-based stuff and synth-based. And like, well, do you reckon you could play some guitar over this potentially? Or how about a beat maybe? But most of the time with this sort of thing, we are trying to just sort of create some sort of, how would I say, like some sort of different sound when we're trying to like make stuff. So with like the guitar and stuff, we're trying like to maybe... maybe like not so much electric. We're doing a lot of acoustic stuff as well, and just sort of experimenting with different sounds at the end of the day. I mean, you can spend hours and hours just trying to get a right synth sound and guitar sound, but sometimes, I mean, you just want to sort of go with the original stuff at the end of the day and just sort of get an idea down, and then maybe after that's when we can start to experiment with the sound and stuff. But yeah.
You know, that's one of, I would say, one of the trademarks or hallmarks of your music, especially having listened to all 64 of the tracks. on your Taxi artist page, which I will link to underneath this video so people can go check it out. Now Fabian's going to go, oh no, people are going to hear the old stuff. But it's important that they do, because you know what? People need to understand that most of the time Taxi members who are successful became successful because they worked towards that. They got better over time. And you guys were obviously never terrible. I mean, everything on there is extremely good, very respectable, but there are some that are definitely more current that are the standouts. So it just proves the point that you do get better the more you do it.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to go back to the bringing in unusual and unique sounds, because one of the hallmarks of your music now, I believe, is the fact that you sound very current, and very current and competitive with whoever the top artists are out there in any of the genres that you seem to work comfortably in. But a lot of Taxi members have a problem with sounding current. And I believe it's because they dismiss, people will say, oh, I don't listen to radio today. I hate what's on radio today. And they kind of stay stuck in the era in which they fell in love with music. I mean, I fell in love with music when I was 9 years old with the Beatles, and then it was the Eagles and Steely Dan, bands like that. So if I were a songwriter, that would probably be where I would start, and I would have to force feed myself whatever's current. So that's why earlier I asked you what you listen to now, because your stuff is very current, and your synth sounds in particular, really, really good choices on that. Really lush sounding synthesizers, really good choices as to what you picked for a synthesizer in a certain track. And is there anything you guys can share with your fellow Taxi members as to how you do that and what the progression was like to the point where you became really good at making those choices?
Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned Steely Dan then. I mean, John Mayer, massively influenced by Steely Dan.
Yeah.
And the Beatles as well, to be honest. And I think, and you mentioned like Taxi members potentially just staying or stagnating in certain areas and not listening to the radio. I think you've got to listen to the radio. You've got to listen to what's hot at the moment. And you've got to almost like take elements from the Beatles, the Eagles, Steely Dan, Miley Cyrus. I mean, with the weird sounds and stuff, Calvin Harris, and I don't know, just maybe another DJ as well, potentially. But yeah, you've got to listen to the radio. Definitely. I mean, just what's going on at the moment as well, just to just to understand. Sorry, mate. Yeah, Karen.
Yeah, sorry. Another thing is also, you don't have to sell out and be like change your musical taste and sell yourself completely. I mean, you can have your musical preferences, and then what you can do, and what we always like to do is, you know, kind of mix things up that you like, that you would like to have on the radio with, you know, certain elements that are out there, and mesh them up. So you have, on the one hand, a current sound with modern instruments, samples, presets, but you refer to the music you actually like. As a matter of fact, we were just working on a track that has been a bit Bee Gees inspired, that we pushed into a Charlie Puth type of direction. So you can really experiment. You don't have to live either in that world or in that world, but you can make both, like merge together and maybe come up with something new and original.
I don't know if you watched any of the Taxi Road Rally prequels, the stuff we did before the Road Rally and the 3 days leading up to it. But I think it was the first, maybe the second interview I did was with an engineer producer friend of mine named Carl Richardson, who was the co-producer on all the big Bee Gees hits, starting with, he engineered the record called Main Course that had Jive Talking on it. But then for like all the Saturday Night Fever stuff and everything after that, including the Kenny Rogers stuff and the Barbra Streisand stuff. And he was my mentor when I got my first job in the industry. So there were times, like I didn't work on the Bee Gees records, but they didn't tell me to get out of the room if I stumbled in the control room. And watching them take a kick drum and measure it out with a yardstick, and making marks on the tape and then looping it and making loops that were like 30 feet long, going around pencils and chairs and mic stands, because drum machines didn't exist yet. So those guys really, they were hearing what everybody is doing today and found a way to make it happen in a very low-tech way.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought up the Bee Gees, because I think
love the Bee Gees.
Yeah, everybody who's like really into music respects what they did. Some people discount them as, oh, they were a disco band, but they were so much more.
But I think there was a music show on I don't know, we have that very artsy program here in France called Arte, about these band in the 60s, ABBA, Bee Gees and Carpenters, and how they haven't been really taken seriously. And although their musical legacy is just enormous, it's fantastic, like the melodies they wrote and the instrumentation and all of that. It's too bad that people made fun of that, but it's fantastic. I mean, fantastic songwriting and productions.
Yeah, I mean, even like, for example, The Weeknd, he takes inspiration from the Bee Gees. And to be honest, they were so far ahead of their time when they came out. I mean, the falsetto when he sort of came in, the harmonies. I mean, you probably at the same time you probably had the Beach Boys, who were well into the harmonies as well. But they were just the Bee Gees were just different, and they were just so good, so far ahead of their time.
Yeah, to have that much talent in one family is stunning. I mean, Barry who's the only remaining Bee Gees, the only one still alive. But and I once asked him, "How do you write a hit song?" We were crossing each other in the hallway at work, and I said, "Barry, tell me, how do you write a hit song?" He looked at me like, "You don't know?" He said, "Emotion, mate." And he just kept walking. But the other two brothers were also extremely talented. And I don't know that Barry on his own would have been as good, or if the other brothers on their own would have been as good. But there's chemistry, which is something clearly you guys have together. And I'm quite amazed. I'm so happy that I sat there and listened to every single track. It's almost like a tutorial in making progress. And I'm going to encourage everybody who watches this video to, take a couple hours one night and sit down and listen to it. So please don't take it down any of the early stuff.
No, and I want to talk about this like really fast, because I think this is a great occasion, and it's really because I mean, having submitted so many tracks to Taxi and the amazing feedback, which was really hard to take in the beginning. It's sometimes still hard to take, because you put all your pride and personal feelings into these tracks. But I don't know the guys who are working for you, but the stuff they're writing is just so spot on, and they do an amazing job. And thanks to them again, it's fantastic. And it really helped us progress in our songwriting, and it still does. And I hope we're getting better with each day.
Well, clearly you are. And thank you for saying that, because, as the owner of Taxi, it's always been hard on me emotionally when people say, oh, those screeners don't know what they're doing. The Taxi A&R people must be a bunch of interns, and they're not. They all have, every single one of them has a resume that you'd go, wow, I can't believe people who've done this, are listening to my music and giving me this feedback. But of course, somebody who isn't prepared for that feedback to take it in stride. Look, they're not right 100% of the time, but they are right way more often than not. And where else can you get that level of feedback from that big of a pool of people giving the feedback? Adam, do you feel have a similar view of the feedback having value?
Definitely. I mean, it's always constructive. Whatever we get back from Taxi is always good. I mean, we know where we stand. We know how to improve certain tracks. And we sort of know sometimes, I mean, sometimes you create a song and you think, right, this is the shit, this one.
Right.
And sometimes you sort of get the feedback, and there's certain things you can improve, and you go, yeah, I understand that. And then sometimes you get a song that you don't think is all that, and people really like it. And it's always good to get sort of the feedback from Taxi as well, because sometimes you don't realize what a song is until other people sort of listen to it. And that's sort of what's really good about it at the end of the day.
And it's probably worth noting that when they're giving the feedback, they're giving it in two regards. In one respect, they're giving feedback as if you nailed the brief or you didn't. And the other regard is they'll probably throw in, oh, by the way, I think if you did a harmony part here, it might make the chorus lift more. So they're doing it as kind of a mentor and a judge at the same time. And something that I noticed when listening to all your tracks the other night is there's some songs that get forwarded probably 90% of the time. I think Go With The Flow was one of them that when I was looking at your forward and return lists, like Go With The Flow, forward, Go With The flow, forward. Did you know that one was as good as everybody must think it is when you did it? Or was it just like, okay, we're done, move on?
Absolutely not, actually. I actually thought that was one of the weakest tracks.
Average, yeah.
Because the songwriting process was really weird. I mean, we were going into the studio with like a Scandinavian singer, and we actually never finished the song, and she was just throwing in some lines in the studio, and then we like kind of put it all together, and there wasn't really a structure, like a real message, but somehow it works. And yeah, I mean, people like it, which is funny.
Some of my other favorites, Low Key, I really liked. Blind Spot, I liked. Hemispheres, Wild, Fearless, a great female empowerment track. I guess empowerment, period, but it happens to be a female vocalist on there, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Quarantine, I loved. I thought it was just so right for the times. And then Back in the Game. Those were, the ones I would say I favorited as I listened. Something else that I noticed, which I was like really smiling and like proud of you guys, even though I hadn't met you yet, I don't know you, but you've clearly figured out the secret sauce of having the right singer on the right track. You can have somebody, I know this from my days producing, that you can have a great vocalist on a track, but if it's not the right vocalist, the performance doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they hit all the notes or they've got energy, they've got to have the right energy. Do you guys spend a ton of time picking your vocalist and thinking about like, why are you laughing so
This
hard?
is super funny. I mean, if we had a dollar for every time we spoke about this sort of thing, we'd be billionaires literally every day. I mean, it's all in the performance. I mean, you mentioned the vocalist. It very much is. That is the end part of the track, and it has to be pristine. Without the right vocalist, without the right performance, the track might go in a different direction.
Absolutely. It's so apparent to me, but only because I listened to the whole progression. And I could see that you were getting pickier and pickier as time went on about the vocal. At some point, about halfway through, I started going, oh, I'll bet you anything. They probably tried 2 or 3 different vocalists on this one. And then when they got to the third one, they probably changed the key because the key was right maybe for the first vocalist, but not right for the third vocalist. Just all those things were so apparent to me. So I'm glad that you guys find it entertaining that I noticed that.
It is very true. It is, it can be frustrating sometimes because some of these singers are a bit difficult to handle. It's not always easy to find the right singer for the right song, but at the end of the day, you want to create a vibe, you want to create a feeling. If you want to pitch the song to an artist, you got to think of like, does it actually take this into the direction that I want to carry this song to the artist that is also in that very style. So you have to think of a lot of things, but I think eventually the most important thing is that the emotion it carries is the most important part of the song. And sometimes one singer can do that task better than another. So we are a bit picky, that's true.
And do you record the vocalists remotely as well? And are you actually like being vocal producers where you're working live remotely with the vocalist, or did they just record like a first pass and send it to you? You listen and go, okay, I like that, but can you go edgier, for instance? How's your process work on that?
It is actually, it is both, I would say. I mean, a lot of times, especially this year, we're working remotely, which works out nice. Obviously, it's better when you're in the studio with a singer, and then you can fine tune the little details and really translate what you have on your mind and how you want it to sound it like. But yeah, we do both, except this year where we basically just work remotely, but that's due to the circumstances. Obviously.
Another thing about the vocals that I noticed is that the vocals tend to sit really well in the mix. And at first I thought, oh, So this must be for a record. They maybe had the intent of making this for a record because the vocal's a little louder on this one. They realized, no, the vocal technically, from a purely technical standpoint, wasn't louder. The clutter around the vocal disappeared. And that was the choice of your parts, the key that you were working in, the performance of the vocalist. It all just meshes so incredibly well together that you're hearing every word and you feel like the vocalist is the star of the track, but the vocal track really isn't any louder than any of the other ones. It's just everything you built around the vocal complements the vocal so well, which I think a lot of people don't understand that process, that how interactive it is with instrumentation and the vocalist. They just get a really good vocal performance. They've got lots of cool guitar parts. They got a great bass and drum track. They've got lots of cool synth parts. And then they shove up the faders and they try to bring everything to the party. And in the end, that cool vocal performance gets lost. So you guys, do you talk to each other and go, we're not treating the vocalist well, we've got too many parts, or it's the wrong key? Do those conversations happen between you?
Of course. I mean, there's been times where I've made something, I've sent it to Fabian, and he said, look, that guitar doesn't add anything to the mix. And a lot of the time in our music, we try to make sure that every instrument is there for a reason, sort of thing. So maybe the guitar is complementing the bass, the snare is maybe with some reverb and it's complementing the hi-hat and stuff like that. And yeah, we do really try to make sure that everything is sort of complementing, and as well as the vocalist as well. I mean, sometimes there's like harmonies and stuff that maybe a bit too high and stuff, and you think, well, maybe we can bring that down, and maybe the lead needs to be louder here. And yeah, it's we do speak about that a lot. Yeah.
Do you guys write differently or approach your productions differently when you're working on a film TV thing, as opposed to working on something that you know is destined to go on a record?
I would say so, because we do a lot of instrumental cues as well, actually. And that is more, it's kind of also, it's also like almost like more replicating a certain sound that's being asked for. Right. And when we work for an artist, we try to be a bit riskier and, you know, be a bit more experimental as well, because yeah, you got to bring something new to the table. Mm-hmm. But when we work instrumentals and instrumental cues, we, it's more kind of replicating a certain sound. I mean, obviously with new ideas as well, but it's all about the mood and the feel. Whereas when we write like proper songs for artists, it's more like trying to push the boundaries a bit.
You know, it's funny. Every now and then I'll get a comment in underneath one of our YouTube videos where we were talking about instrumental cues, and somebody will say, "Oh, I wouldn't want to do that. It's like, you know, being a factory worker and there's no artistry and no creativity." And virtually every successful Taxi member who's really good at doing instrumental cues, they all say, no, I never feel like I'm selling out. I never feel like there's a lack of artistry. If anything, these people frequently, almost to the person, will tell me, I've gotten so much better because I'm doing instrumental cues. My instrument choices come faster. My mixing decisions happen faster. The speed at which I work, because I've had to become more organized doing instrumental cues, all that pays off when I'm working on songs for records as well. Have you found that to be the experience for you as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It is a good practice, but at the same time, you develop your skills, and I mean, even if you do instrumental cues, you have to know what are you doing, and you know, you have to craft a great song and a great instrumental, and that's not nothing you just do like really fast. I mean, like you can do it very fast, but you know, it's still doing something and getting more experience. And no, we're having a great time. Like last year we were doing, I mean, this year we were doing lots of surf rock stuff. We've never worked on surf rock stuff, but that was absolutely fun. It was so cool to do something different, and we got very creative with that, and it was good fun. Adam did a lot of guitar stuff, so that was his time to shine.
Awesome. Adam, when you do your guitar parts, are you going through like a guitar sim? Are you doing amps with microphones? What's your preferred way of getting your sounds?
I mean, usually through presets more
Yeah.
than ever. I mean, with the surf rock stuff, that was a bit more challenging. We did use, we did mic up the amps, a Marshall and a Mesa Boogie that we used. So
A mess of
we did
what?
a Mesa Boogie.
Oh, Mesa Boogie. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like a mess of
No.
boogers or something. Yeah, I get it now.
No, I mean, more so the surf rock stuff more than anything, rather than the EDM stuff. We do mic up. But sometimes you get some great presets more than ever in some of this stuff. So, yeah.
Do you guys use Logic or Pro Tools? What's your favorite workstation?
I use Logic. Fabian uses Pro Tools.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm.
The battle rages on.
Oh yeah. It is a bad.
Back in my day, I started out when 16 tracks were still around and just moving into the 24 track era. And
wow,
the earliest recording consoles I used didn't even have channel strips. I mean, it had channels, but not individual strips you could pull out. It was just one big sheet of aluminum, with all these holes drilled in and the parts put in there. And then eventually I moved on to like SSLs and Neves. And worked in some great rooms. I mean, the last room that was kind of my home base room was in New York City. And I had a beautiful SSL, a mic closet that anybody would give up a body part for. Just like killer outboard. Almost any killer outboard you could think of was in that room. And if not in that room, somewhere else in the building. About 2 months ago, I finally broke down and bought Logic. I've never done anything on a digital audio workstation before. And I've probably only spent about 3 hours on Logic so far because I was getting ready for the road rally when I bought it. But I am absolutely blown away. I mean, the last room I worked in was $3 million between the construction and the gear. It was a $3 million room. I'm finding so much more good stuff, great stuff in Logic that I can't wait to find the time and just sit down. And it's like everything that's in your head is now in your computer.
Yeah. It is quite impressive, yeah.
Unlimited choices, which could be a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the drums in Logic are mind-blowingly good. You almost don't, and I am familiar with several of the other drum programs, which I won't mention by name. They're all really good, and they keep getting better like every 2 years. But the stuff that's in Logic right now is just, you don't even need to use those other kits. How long does it typically take you when you're working on a song from conception to completion? If you could guesstimate how many man hours might go into something.
That is very different. It depends on the song we're working on. Some songs are like go very fast. Like the other day, we wrote a top line in like 1 day, produced it in like 3 days, 4 days, I guess, with a singer. So that went super fast. Sometimes if we feel like we're working on something special, we really like to take our time as well. So we have some projects that we go back to every once in a while, and it's hard to tell how long it actually takes in the end. But while we're doing these projects, we have like single projects we like getting done quite quickly. So I would say, I don't know, Adam, what do you say for a song?
I mean, probably like what, fully produced. I'd say, well, do you know what? It still depends. I mean, probably a week or two fully produced. But to be honest, there's stuff that we're still writing now that we've had from 4 years ago. So it really does depend on the track at the end of the day and what sort of current as well. And to be honest, like there's been times we're working on R&B and we spend about a month there, and then we'll have like a top line that we just, like Fabian said, we produce in a day. And that's always, it's always good to just sort of pull them out of the air more than anything.
Depends sorry.
No, carry on, mate. Yeah, go for it.
It depends on if there's a deadline as well, or if there's enough pressure to.
That
really depends on that, obviously.
For sure.
And how is it time-wise to turn around an instrumental track? Let's say you're doing like a pop rock guitar-based instrumental. How long might that take? Can you bang that out in a day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be possible, yeah.
If the deadline is very strict, totally, for sure, we can do that. Yeah.
I won't mention the name of the company, but I do remember in the notes that I got on in the stuff that we wrote up in the member success column, that you mentioned that one of the companies that Taxi hooked you up with, I think it was a record company, and you were extremely complimentary about their professionalism and how easy it was to work with them. We have an issue right now. I'm going to be very open about this because we're a pretty transparent company. A lot of the libraries, production music libraries that we work with have started saying, can you please put something in the listing that says, please don't submit to this if you're not experienced in the ways of the music library industry. And the reason they've asked for that is, you know, we've always judged music, just does it answer the request well? And is it really high quality? If it meets those two criteria, it goes to the person who asked for it. And then the library will do their due diligence. They'll do a little background check on the artist or the producer, the composer. And then they reach out to them via email or a phone call. And sometimes the response they get is, oh, hell, man, I don't want to sign an exclusive deal. Or what do you mean you want this in perpetuity? Or what do you mean there's no money up front? You know, any number of different questions because they don't know what the common deal types are and they don't know the etiquette. So what we're going to do is put together a little 10-minute video that explains these things. And rather than putting that language in listing that says don't submit, because I think there's some great music being made by people who don't submit because they don't know the rules of the game. So we're going to say, if you want to submit to this, the client requests that you click this link and watch this short video that will explain the stuff. So all that, a big lead up for a simple question, which is, how have you two learned what is kind of the normal progression of things, the normal etiquette, the normal deals? Obviously, I would guess you've learned by doing, but has it been any contact with other members through the forum? Has it been conversations with your clients that you've met through Taxi as well? How did you learn how to be a professional? There you go. Long lead up, short question.
It's a good question. I think it's the learning by doing process, really. I mean, I must admit that in the very beginning, I had no clue. I'm still not sure if I actually have. I mean, it's a very, I remember you did a web show where you were talking about non-exclusive and exclusive contracts, and even your guest wasn't really sure how it actually works. And it's a real rabbit hole, but it's still, you know, learning by doing. And, you know, there's so many different deal types and different agreements and different people you work with. Yeah, every time we work with someone new, it's a new experience. And yeah, I think the more you do, the better it is. That's the best school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if a company like a song, I mean, they like a song, they might say they want this particular track or this particular track, but sometimes a company or an artist listen to a track and they're like, yeah, I'm feeling it. And sometimes that's the amazing thing about it. Sometimes they just connect with it straight away, and it's a simple process. Like the, I assume you're talking about the, what was the company, Fabian? Just so I can remember.
I don't know. I'm not sure we should mention it.
Oh, no. We shouldn't mention the company because sometimes not everybody who watches is a Taxi member. Sometimes they take the company name and then they contact the company and do dopey things. But I think are we talking about the company that starts with an M?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what were you going to say about that?
I mean, they just liked the track straight away. I mean, there was and it was very simple. I mean, Fabian mentioned before, it was a very simple process. The production side of things was great. I mean, and they were very helpful as well. They were like, oh, we don't like this, we don't like that. I think you could improve it here, sort of thing. But overall, I mean, it was just such a simple process.
Yeah, amazing communication. Yeah.
Yes, more than anything. Yeah.
It's nice dealing with nice people, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's nice dealing with professional people, and unfortunately, like a lot of times in the industry, you meet up people who are like promising you a lot of things, and they're selling you the world. And at the end of the day, they get nothing done. And not that I want to praise Taxi all the time, but you guys
please do. Go ahead.
You do you do an amazing job. And the best years we've gotten were through Taxi, because people are very professional, and they actually get stuff done. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what really matters and what counts.
And the feedback more than anything. I mean, you know, if someone doesn't go to that particular brief, and why it doesn't go to that particular brief. And I think that's what sets Taxi apart from the other companies that are doing the same thing, all the A&R companies, shall I say. And that's
people often ask us, do you charge the companies that run the listings with you? And I made the decision right at the moment when I started the company that I would never charge a client to run a listing, because that would eliminate half the listings coming in. And my goal was to create as many great opportunities for you guys as I possibly could. But what we do is we actually check out the companies. We turn away at least as many companies as we work with. We turn others away because we don't feel like they've been doing it long enough. They don't have a big enough footprint. There's not a lot of evidence that they will be respectful to our members and professional in their business dealings with our members. And sometimes they're very nice people, but we'll say to them, you know, come back to us when you've got a little more substance under your belt, but you're a little new right now. And then there are other cases where somebody was at another production music library for 5 years, and then they branched out on their own. And even though it's a brand new company, we don't really have to check them out much, because we already dealt with the person and we know their style of doing business is not only acceptable, but preferable. So I think that I'm glad you guys brought that up, because I don't think a lot of members really think about that much, that not only are we vetting your music to make sure it fits their needs, we're also vetting the companies to make sure that they will fit your needs as composers, artists, and producers.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, it would be bad for business if our members were calling us constantly going, I can't believe you hooked me up with this company. They're crooks, or they're jerks, or they're impossibly hard to work with. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I really appreciate that. Any final thoughts? I'm going to go to each of you. I'll start with Adam on this. Any final thoughts on advice for new Taxi members or members who are struggling or getting frustrated? What do you have, Adam?
I mean, if you're an individual, I would definitely say hook up with someone that is better in another area. I mean, just as an example, Fabian is an amazing producer and an amazing pianist, synthist or keyboardist, if that's even a word. And I think you need to sort of, if you are a new member from Taxi, you need the other elements that sort of will help you create a track more than anything. I mean, maybe you know someone that's very good with drums or very good with mastering, and you could, I would say more than anything, hooking up with people that want the same goal. And I think that's where me and Fabian have sort of complemented each other more than anything. Getting minds that are alike more than anything, I think.
Great advice.
You can do this on your own as well. It's just, I mean, Adam is perfect to work with, by the way. I don't mean to
cheers, mate.
to talk bad about. No, I have to say though, he's a fantastic vocalist. He's been actually singing boy bands, and he had good success with that. Not only great guitar player, also great vocalist and a great pal to work with. Amazing stuff. But yeah, we complement each other, which is awesome. But you can, I mean, you can also do this by, I mean, that's the cool thing nowadays. You can have your little studio and work from your bedroom. That totally works as well. But I think what Adam wants to say with that as well is create your little network, make friends in the music business, or like try to do the same thing. Or if you are a great producer, try to find great vocalists. If you're a great guitar player, try to find someone who's, you know, adding something to it. And yeah, get out a bit of your box and fill your head with new ideas, go out, live an exciting life. That creates most of the great stories that you can write songs about. And yeah, I mean, and yeah, just keep on writing, keep producing. Just never stop working.
Just the last thing. Listen to every sort of music you can possibly find as well. If you like pop, listen to country. If you like dance, listen to reggae. Just listen to everything and maybe just pick elements out of each. Maybe you like the synth in this EDM track and you like this bass in this reggae track, or this guitar in this rock track, and just sort of pull them all together. More than anything, yeah, just always have Spotify on, or any other the streaming companies or whatever. Just always listen to music, I'd say.
I want to thank you guys, first of all, just for taking the time to do this. But I also just want to congratulate you on now that I've listened to 64 songs and instrumentals, just watching you grow in a relatively short amount of time. And I can see how the relationship between the two of you is so complementary. So thank you for being a beacon, if you will, to your other members. And I'm sure that they'll find this interview inspirational, and just keep up the great work, you guys. I'm really proud of you and grateful to have you as Taxi members. And I hope that in 2021, we're able to have a road rally in person, if not 2021, 22, whenever we do the next one. I hope that you guys are able to come over and join us for that, because I would love to meet you more in person.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Sure. Yeah. We wanting to come out to LA for a long time now, and yeah, this year wasn't possible, obviously. But,
why? Hopefully the vaccines will do what they're supposed to do, and hopefully there will be enough months in advance of what would be the 2021 road rally, and whenever it is, I just really look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Absolutely looking forward.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, Fabian Faupel and Adam Parker, better known as Saint Rock.